Oh, hold on. 1 second. Okay. We're back. Hello, hello. I hope you're all doing having a wonderful day. I hope you're doing well today. My name is Brittany Lewis. I am a professional graphic designer, artist, and illustrator. And Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And today is no exception to that. We're going to pick up right where we left off. But before we get started, there are a few things I would like to ask you to do. If you like this stream, if you find something valuable later on and you want to support me, one of the quickest, freest, and easiest ways to do that is to hit the like button. That helps me out so much. That lets YouTube know that you appreciate the content and would like to see more of it. And you think that people who like the things that you like would also appreciate the content and would also like to see more. Another way that you can support myself as well as this project is by visiting my website, blewisarts.com, because from now until December the 3rd, everything in the store shop-wide is 40% off, and all of the canvas prints ship for free. So everything ships within about 2 days, except canvas prints, which takes us about 2 weeks or so to have manufactured for you, because those are made to order. So if you visit my shop, it'll look a little something like this if you're looking on a mobile device, where you'll have all of the categories and things like that, so that you can pick what it is that you're interested in. I have everything from poster prints to canvas prints to books and ebooks, journals, and all kinds of goodies and things for you to pick up. So again, that's my website, blewisarts.com, and everything will be linked down in the description. One other thing that I would love to share with you, just in case you missed it, Friday we had a wonderful live stream with Sam and Lee. So if you have not had an opportunity to check that out, please go back to my channel and watch this after this stream. Of course, we had a really good time, especially if you are interested in learning digital painting and things like that. How to navigate and work within a digital illustration program. That is going to be the video for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're picking back up. I have had an opportunity to do a little bit of work on the Two of Wands. Now we've been working on this particular image for a few weeks now, right? It's been a while. I think this is like episode 7 of this particular video. And I do know that we're going to have, or we may have, some new viewers in the building. So first of all, if you're new here, welcome. If you are watching this live or the replay, I really appreciate you for being here, because on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, you can do anything else, but you're here with me, and I so from the bottom of my heart appreciate that. But just in case you're new, the Cosmic Gateways is a project that I started in 2019. Now, this project was a dream project of mine. It took me many years to build up to beginning this particular series of images. The Cosmic Gateways Tarot will be a 78 card tarot deck that will include a guidebook as well as a companion book that will have all of the artist notes and all of the deep dives into each card that I create. And Sundays is the day that I create that. So we're less than halfway through the deck. So we're going to be here for a little while. And I do know that there are plenty of people who've been watching this particular project develop since the very beginning. And if you are in that number, I truly appreciate you. But if you're new here, welcome. Each week we discuss whatever it is we're working on and whatever's on my mind. So we are back at the Two of Wands. And this is the progress I've made. I have worked on this a little bit this week. I think where we left off, I was starting to work on my main character's face. And I believe we had already done her hands, and I did a little bit of work in her shirt. But I did go ahead and add more details to the ruffles of her shirt, and I did add a few more details to her face. I'll play around with it some more. Like I do know that I have drawn in for her an earring. I may add some accessories and things like that. None of that's important to the story, but I'll add it just sort of as a small nuance and just little odds and ends that I would like to add to her. But for today, I believe we're going to work on the globe. Now, I did start on this earlier this week. I didn't do a whole lot, so I'll just kind of show you how I approach objects, because a long time ago I would have a really hard time drawing and articulating objects. People have always been sort of where I have been blessed with the talent to create. Like, I love to create people. I love to paint faces and things like that. But because of that, I didn't spend a whole lot of time developing the skills in painting objects. Even in college, when we have still life drawings and things like that, I could draw them, but I would do better with the accuracy of people. So we've got a good solid start. I've gotten a whole lot better, of course, over the years, because I hadn't been in college since 2008. So it's been a minute. But I have developed a little bit of skill, so we're going to show you a little bit of how that works. Now, I do have my globe reference here, but because this image follows the same sort of environment as our Hierophant card, which I'll show you here in a bit, I'm actually going to use the look of the globes in the Hierophant card. So in the picture where, or in the box where we see the actual globe reference, that's going to be my reference box, and this is my Hierophant. And I'm just going to sort of try, because it's been, I think I finished this card in 2021, so it's been a while since I've drawn these particular spheres, but this is sort of the look that I'm going for, right? So I'm going to try my best to duplicate that. And the reason behind that is because I don't necessarily know yet if the world of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot is Earth, right? So I don't want to necessarily paint a very specific globe. I don't want to have to do like the continents and all of that. I don't really want to have to do that. So one of the cheats that I'm going to use today is to sort of give it a just sort of a generic, I don't know, sphere look, right? Now, the map I do have a plan for. And though I'm saying I don't know that this is on Earth, I do have an idea of placing a map of my hometown. Like I found a map from like the 1800s of my hometown that I think would be pretty cool to add to where our main character is pointing. I don't know. We'll see. But today we're going to work on this globe, and we're going to just make our way around the canvas. All right. So again, I hope you guys are having a great time. I think 2 live streams is a week in a week has I don't know, it's been kind of different. I'm really excited that I had the opportunity to speak with Sam and Lee and PL. Hey PL, just saw your comment. Hey PL, I hope you're having a great day. And for everyone else who's watching, I hope you all are having a great day as well. But yeah, we had a really great class. I don't know that I am much of a teacher, but I do enjoy sort of explaining the process of what it is that I do, because I've taken a long time to learn how to do what I do, right? So I've always been very artistic. I think my earliest memories are of me drawing and things like that. I did study graphic design in college. That was just what I did, and what I chose to do as far as my education went. And I worked in corporate as a graphic designer for many years before launching my own business. And so when it comes to demonstrating things, sometimes I'm just hoping that I'm like, making sense, right? And sometimes when you do something, it's easier to do than it is to explain. So I am hoping that I was very clear in my explanation, but I watched it back because I like to make sure that there are no glitches or anything like that. It seemed like I did pretty good. So if you haven't had an opportunity to watch that yet, I highly suggest it, especially if you are learning digital art. If that's something that you're interested in, for sure do that. And I have actually in the comments of that video listed some resources for anyone who's interested in sort of the lighting class that I mentioned at the end, and some other brushes and things like that, other artists that teach certain techniques very well. I would highly suggest checking those out. But yeah, today is going to be pretty chill, I believe. I don't really have any pressing topics that I would like to share with you, but we can do a little bit of a rundown of this particular project, even though, we mentioned it a little bit earlier. I know we'll have people coming in and out. So the reason that I decided to create a tarot deck in the first place was because, one, it is a medium that I enjoy. I do love to divine with tarot. I think it's a very fun medium, and I think that you can get lots and lots of personal information in terms of how to improve yourself, how to, correct certain patterns and cycles and things like that. And a lot of the times, the readings that I do are focused in that particular realm, right? But the problem is that when I was looking for decks and looking for, because I'm very visual, right? I'm a visual learner. I love to connect to images. I love to support other artists. I'm very artsy, right? But when I was looking for decks and things like that to use in my practice, I was having a hard time finding images that I personally could connect to. Now, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of decks in circulation. I just didn't see any, or have not, or have had a hard time finding some that I felt represented me on my particular journey. And at the same time, or for years leading up to this, I had also been very dissatisfied and a little bit discouraged with the art that I was creating. And so one of the ways that I decided to remedy that was to just make it myself, right? And that is something that has been a theme in my life for a very long time. When I was in my early 20s, I owned a small business where, and this was before natural hair was a huge thing, where I made natural shampoos and soaps and things like that. But the reason that I made it was because I couldn't find in the store or online. And online, we were ordering things online at that time, but I was having a hard time finding what I wanted and what I liked and what I thought would be great for my hair. So I started to research and I started to formulate, and I eventually launched a company while I was in school, that sold specialty natural hair products, right? Same with this particular YouTube channel. I love art. I love watching people create. It is one of my favorite things in the world to do. But I wasn't really seeing the art that I liked, right? So I was like, okay, well, I'm sitting here, I'm painting anyway. Let me go ahead and record myself, do some of that. And thus began this channel back in, I think, 2013, maybe 11 years or so ago, right? So same thing happened with this particular deck. I wasn't finding the resources that I was drawn to personally, so I decided to make them myself. Right? Sometimes we wait on people to do things for us, but sometimes it's going to take us to do it. Right? It's going to take you to do whatever it is that you're looking to have done, that you're not seeing out in the market, that you're not seeing on social media. Sometimes it's going to take you, the person actually wanting the thing done, to actually do it, right? And so that was sort of where I was with this particular project. I wanted to create the work that I wanted to see in the world. And so we've been at this for about 5 years, and it's taken me 5 years for a few reasons. One is that I have to do this sort of in my off time, right? Because I have clients and I have, other responsibilities and things like that. So I'm not able to devote 24/7 to this. Like there is, there was or is a deck, I believe, by Art X Man, and he put in like 14 hours a day, and that was awesome. And that was what he could do, right? But I don't have 14 hours to devote to this every day. It's just not how my life is set up. And the same goes for other decks. You see other projects and things like that. If you're looking to do something, you're going to see people do the same thing or something similar, and they're going to do it faster or slower than you. I just would not allow myself to, I can't allow myself to compare my journey to the next person's. And so we just add it at our own pace, right? And for that, I'm really thankful because it gives me an opportunity to be very intentional about what it is that I'm doing. I do get to take my time. I'm in no particular hurry, even though it's been, 5 years. And even though I still get messages to this day of people who are so excited about this deck, and, they've been waiting on it and they want to know when they could start saving up money and all of those things. I still have to sort of take my time. That way I'm making sure that I make a quality product. And along the journey of doing this, I'm also watching other creators and other projects and things like that launch, not necessarily to compare what I'm doing with what's going on in the world, but to learn from it, right? So, for instance, I had bought a deck that's illustrated by the artist Yoshi Tani, but I don't think it's her deck specifically. I think she just illustrated it, and I bought it because she illustrated it. I really enjoy her artwork. But this particular company is having logistical nightmares with this particular project, right? So I'm watching it like, okay, so I see that they launched this project, and it's been a minute. I think it's been over a year since I backed the Kickstarter. And within that year, you hear updates and things like that. But what's happening is they're sent out a shipping notice to say, okay, it's going to ship December, whenever, end of November, something like that, right? Then they sent out an update to say, hey, our dice aren't coming in time, so it's going to be middle of December if you have dice in your package. And so those sorts of things, and then they charge shipping a year later after you've paid like 100, and I think mine was $115 for this package, and then I have to come back and pay shipping. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, when I launch my deck, I'm going to do my best to not have my customers or the people who are purchasing from me go through this particular situation. So I am learning a lot along this journey. And that's one that I don't really care for. I know that when you're doing a Kickstarter, when you're launching a product, you don't necessarily know what shipping is going to be. But I think that we should be able to get relatively close, right? So part of doing business is that we do eat a little bit of the shipping costs, right? Even in the sales and things like that I have, where like right now we have the 40% off. The shipping is going to cost a certain thing, but some of that I have to eat, and I kind of factor that into the price of the products so that it balances itself out. And so that's sort of how business goes. And I believe that this particular project wouldn't be catching as much hell as it is if they had sort of eaten some of the cost, right? Or at least gotten as close to the shipping as possible. Because now what the situation is that they have 600 backers who have not paid for their shipping. So they've paid for the product, right? They may have paid $115 or however much, and there were packages more than that. They may have paid for that, but because they hadn't paid the additional cost of the shipping, then they can't receive the item that they paid for because it wasn't factored into the price early on. So just me watching things like that from other creators, from other businesses, has been really helpful, I will say. It's really interesting to just sort of see what works for some and what does not work for some. I think that's one of the big things, because it's real annoying to have to pay for something, and then a year later you get an email to say, "Hey, I know you paid this much money for this thing, but we got to charge you an extra little fee because we still have to pay for shipping, and we didn't charge you that at the beginning. It's been a year later." Right? Life happens for everybody. Everybody may not have the extra little bit to pay for shipping, and may not want to, because I paid you $115 for a date. I don't want to pay extra later on down the line. So those sorts of things, you kind of pay attention to. I've been paying a lot of attention to other campaigns for that regard, just to, again, see what works, see what might be worth trying, and see what I can probably leave off, and see maybe what the people may not like, right? Because one of the things that I notice with a lot of businesses, especially with a lot of solo run businesses, is that a lot of times we interject what we want as opposed to listening to our audience, right? So I do my best to sort of pay attention to uh, what the market is saying, and what's working and what's not. And over the last 5 years, lots and lots of things have changed in that regard. And so it's been a really interesting ride. But in terms of sort of keeping going, that's just what you have to do. It's been 5 years. I'm hoping it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be another 5, even though we do have, I believe, 43 cards left to do. At some point, I will be spending more time during the week working on this, so it'll move a little bit faster when time comes. But again, I do appreciate everyone for sticking around and sort of watching the development of this particular project, because it is a labor of love, and it is something that I thoroughly enjoy. I put a lot of myself into it. I do regard this as a 78-piece self-portrait. And I think all art works in that way, right? You can always read something from the artist in the art that they create, even if it's something like your fan art and pop culture and all of that. You can still tell a little bit of something about the artist based on what they choose to create, right? Sometimes you can read emotion. Sometimes you just know a little bit about what they like or what they think will sell. You can read whether or not it's authentic to that particular artist, whether this is something that they thoroughly enjoy, or whether or not this is something that they're creating because they feel like this is what the people are asking for, and they're taking more of a capitalistic approach to it. You read all of that in artwork. But I wanted to take this particular project, and I'm saying particular a lot, but I wanted to take this project and be purposefully introspective, right? I wanted to be able to put some part of myself, some part of my journey, some part of my experience into the artwork that I create, and do that with intention and do that with purpose. Because for me, this is my way of expressing myself, right? That, and giving you guys a glimpse of who I am through these live streams. And I hear my cat outside, and my computer is auto saving. So today we're a little all over the place. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Sometimes it's like that. So one thing I love about Clip Studio Paint is that it does auto save, which comes in clutch, because we've been working on this for like 7 weeks or so, 7 Sundays. And I would hate to lose the progress of what we've done because I forget to save. So the auto save feature is clutch. Now, again, if you have not had an opportunity to check out this past Friday's live stream and you're interested in Clip Studio Paint and in digital illustration, I highly recommend checking it out, because what I did in the beginning of that was do a tour of this particular product, right? This program. And we talked about some of the tools that we use. Generally, when it comes to digital artwork, everything, all the different programs are pretty much set up the same, right? They all have some unique features, but for the most part, they're set up the same. All of the functions and things like that work the same. And so Clip Studio is just the one that I chose because it was just the easiest for me to transition to. And I like it. And right now, if I don't, not getting paid to say this or anything, but if you are interested in Clip Studio, they are having a Black Friday sale. So if there's something that you want to kind of check out, I would highly recommend doing that. Another great program that I use in my graphic design is the Affinity Suite. That is Affinity Photo. Designer and publisher. And I use publisher for books and when I do like proposals and things like that for my clients. I use photo just like I would Photoshop. So any of my photo manipulations, anything like that, I use Affinity Photo for. And for all of my vector work, that's my logo work, that's my the Witches series. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. All of that was done in Affinity Designer. So that is the vector program that I use of choice. Any of my like social media posts and all of that, I design a lot of that in, some of it I do in Canva, but a lot of it I design in uh, Affinity Designer. So they also have a Black Friday thing going on right now, and as well as myself. So if you would like to support this channel and this project, while you're doing your Black Friday shopping, be sure to check out my website, blewisarts.com, because as I plug everyone else, I definitely want to make sure that you guys support me as well. All right, so what I've done in this particular globe, I'm just laying down more flats now. I think the second episode of this series for this particular card, we did flats. And flats are just the plain base layers. So for our bookshelf, it's just a plain brown color with no details or anything like that. I'm doing something very similar within our globe. I'm just adding some variation of color, and I'll move that around with my smudge brush, right? So that sort of gives us a texture. I don't necessarily have to have this as detailed as our reference image. I don't think that's necessary because the focal point is in the action of the characters, right? So this card represents planning, represents doing research and things like that. So the globe is, I don't want to say an afterthought, but the globe is just ambiance, right? It's not necessarily a focal point. It's not something that I want the eye to go to, although it is in the center of the page. You want to give it enough detail to read as a globe, but not so much that it distracts from what our characters are doing. And if you're new here, because again, I know that we have people come in and out, we have new viewers every week. I do want to show you a little bit of the reference that I'm using to create this card. Now, whenever I am creating compositions, I usually Frankenstein references. I try not to get too close to an actual reference, just out of not wanting to get sued later on down the line. But I do like to use references for different things. So sometimes I'll use a reference for the pose. Sometimes I'll use the reference for a light. Sometimes I'll use different objects and items and things like that from the reference, but I don't necessarily want to copy the reference right out. Now, in this case, I do have, I liked the pose, right? To me, the pose, the composition of this reference image, and that is of the three people in the office and one guy pointing down to blueprints. It read the message that I wanted to send in this particular piece, right? So rather than me saying, okay, well, I want all three people and I want them to look exactly like the people in this picture, I just took their poses, changed the people, and eliminated one, and also changed the atmosphere. So this is our main reference. This is our action of this particular card, making plans, right? Now, to create consistency within this deck, one of the ways that I do that is to borrow colors from different cards that I've already created. So now we're on, I think, card number 34. So there's a whole fleet of cards, a whole fleet of color palettes to sort of look at and borrow from. And so because this is a library setup, and the story of my Hierophant is that he is a gatekeeper of sorts, a librarian, a custodial of or custodian of knowledge. I wanted to use this particular card to set the tone for the Two of Wands. I wanted it to be sort of set in the same setting. These people are just in another room in this same world, right? So I'm going to be using a lot of the colors from this. And I'll show you guys again one more time the cards from the deck so that you can kind of see the overall look and some of how I use that throughout the deck as we go. So they're all very different images, but you'll see some subtle nods to galaxies. You'll see lots of purples and blues and things like that. Lots of the same colors. And I think that helps to create uniformity throughout this entire project. Now, again, this is 78 decks. There's going to be lots and lots of variety when it comes to the settings that we find our characters in and the stories that we tell with these pictures. But all in all, that is one of the ways that I deal with that is I, borrow colors, right? Keeps things consistent and it helps me to tell a story. And that's important because I didn't plan any of these cards ahead of time. Not at all. I actually did not plan this project. And I think going back, if I were to start again, I'd probably take a little bit of time to plan it out, sort of come up with a theme, set some parameters. But because I was sort of in this, I need to do this and still putting things off. And at the time, I was making so many excuses as to why I shouldn't start this project, right? But the way that life was sort of happening, it was something that I had to do. I couldn't put it off any longer. All of the things that I was trying to accomplish at the time, everything was falling through so that I could make the time, make the effort, and be motivated to actually begin this project. So I didn't have a plan. I did not have a plan. I just was like, okay, I got to get started. And let me just start drawing and then we'll go from there. Now, the plan and the title actually came probably with the second card. So my very first card was the High Priestess, and then the second card was Justice, right? So at the time that I created Justice, I had been going through some things and was working on myself and all this. And the idea of Cosmic Gateways Tarot came up because in that card, and I'll see if I can show you in this video. Let's see if we can find Justice. In this card, we have the main character standing in front of a gateway. And it just was like, you know what? I should call this the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Of course, I did the research to make sure that that wasn't a name that was already being used. It was not. And so it has been the Cosmic Gateways Tarot ever since. So there it is. So Justice is at the in the far left corner at the top, right? That is Justice. That was our second card for the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And I want to see if I can show you guys the High Priestess really quickly because that was the very first card. And both of those was completed November of 2019. All right. So yeah, I didn't have a plan. I did not have much of a clue as to what I wanted to do. And even the first card started off as something completely different. And for me, it was like, I have an opportunity to do something. It's not going the way that I wanted to do. So the High Priestess is in the bottom right? So right below the Fool, that's the High Priestess. That was our first card. So I had the opportunity to start. I started the card. I planned the card. I was like, okay, it's going to be the Chariot. The Chariot's the first card. I think I pulled cards to see what I wanted it to be. It was not working out at all, right? And I had the option to say, okay, it's not working out. So, do I stop? Is this a sign to say that I shouldn't continue, or should I push through and make it work anyway? And I decided in that moment that I was going to push through and make it work anyway. And we've been rolling on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot ever since. So the High Priestess actually started off as the Chariot, didn't work out, and I had to pivot. And that's been sort of what we've been doing throughout this deck ever since. Now, what I do, what I have began to do ever since then is to say, okay, well, I know that I have twos to work on. So let me go ahead and plan out all of my twos. Let me do some thumbnail sketches, and then I'll go ahead and sketch all of the twos so that all I have to do is just come back in and paint it. And that seems to be working out really well. I'll kind of show you guys what that looks like in a more practical sense. I'll just do little thumbnails. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything fancy, but that helps me sort of make a plan so that I can move forward and draw. Now with the twos specifically, normally what I will do is sketch all four of the cards, and we're getting that done and sketched and taken care of right away. But with the twos, I kind of did them as I went. And so that worked. I had to pivot. I didn't have the time, and I didn't necessarily have the ideas all the way fleshed out. So I was able to pivot, right? We draw them as we go. So I'm going to show you guys what that looks like, the planning of these twos. Now, I do have a new set of cards that I have to begin to plan, right? I have to begin to plan the threes of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And so when I do, it'll look a little bit something like this. So I'll zoom in here and forgive my handwriting because I was writing on the screen. But pretty much this is the way it starts, right? So I label the top of my page twos of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and then I make keywords based on the suit. So for the cups, I had unity, harmony, partnership. For the wands, I had planning and discovery. For the swords, decisions, choices, tough choices specifically, and a stalemate. And for the pentacles, balance, priorities, managing your priorities, and adapting to change. And from there, I noticed that two of the twos dealt a lot more with balance and harmony than the other twos. And then the remaining twos dealt a lot with decision making and choices. So from there, my thinking is okay. So if those are the keywords, and I know that I have two of the twos deal with balance and harmony, and then the other twos deal with decision making, what does that look like in a real life scenario, right? So I go through the whole thing. I research what does two mean in numerology, talk about what is two in numerology so that I can add elements of that into the images, whether that is through the poses, whether that is through the genders of the characters, whether that is through, just the overall story that I'm telling within that. So I go through that process, and then I, even though it's circled and scribbled all over the place, what I do from there is I begin to draw thumbnails. Now, the very first thumbnail that I did, I believe, was the Two of Cups. And not so coincidentally, that was the very first two card that I completed. Now, within the Two of Cups, one of the things that I did notice is that the other cards all have two items, right? So the two of Wands has two wands, Two of Swords has two swords, Two of Pentacles has two pentacles, but the Two of Cups only has one cup. So that may be something I go back and address. I'm not really sure, but I did want it to be an elderly couple, and I wanted that particular card to be an offshoot of the Lovers. So that is the twin card of the Lovers. And again, just like with our Two of Wands and the Hierophant, I use the exact same color palette across the board. So with our Lovers card and our Two of Wands, the female character is wearing the same color as her higher self transformation, and she was in red and gold. The male character is wearing the same color as the mundane self, which was a green color, so that we have a little bit of continuity in the story. When it came to the Two of Wands, this was one that I actually had to pivot because my initial idea was to have it to be a war council scene. So the idea was that there was a general at this war table, and they're planning and they're moving pieces around. And although I think that was a good idea, I don't think it spoke so much to the spirit of the card, because in the original, it's more about a scholarly planning, or at least that's how it reads to me. And so that's sort of the direction I decided to lean in. With the Two of Pentacles, this one pretty much stayed close to the idea or the thumbnail that I had. And these are all stick figures. You may notice they're all stick figures. And that's sort of how they began. And so I wanted the character to feel off kilter, but also at the same time quite balanced and under control. And I think that the finished product illustrates that very well. And finally, the Two of Swords, I decided to make a crossroads, sort of fork in the road scenario. And that's how it goes. So when I get to do the threes, I was thinking about showing you guys this process, but it's a little tedious. There is a lot of me doing research, me sort of calling on my own memory and experience with tarot. So I don't know that it's necessary for me to show you the process of planning the threes, but I will show you once I have sort of my thumbnails and things like that, and I have sort of my development sheet done. I'll show you guys what that looks like. So I'll be working on that sometime after the Two of Wands is complete, because I just have not had the time to dedicate to it. But that is something that I have to do coming up. So yeah, that's how we sort of plan out the cards. I do these in sets of fours. I did all of the queens at one time. I did all of the knights at one time. I did begin working on the kings, and I did all of them at once. I have 4 major arcana cards left to do. I'll probably do all of those at one time. And so to rectify not having a plan in the beginning, what I ended up doing was making plans as I go, right? So I'll say, okay, well, instead of me spending so much time developing this one card, let me develop them in batches. And that way it's a little bit easier for me to keep the story consistent and to also, just make life easier and make the workflow myself easier so that I'm not thinking, okay, gosh, I'm going to finish up this two of wands. I don't know what the heck is coming up next. So that helps me out quite a lot. So again, in retrospect, I think that if I were to go back and start this project again, I probably do planning earlier on in the process. But at the same time, I do want to leave myself room to be creative, right? And again, because this is a self portrait of my own experiences, sometimes the experiences come up as I'm thinking about a new card to paint, right? So I do want to leave room for invention. I do want to leave room for new inspirations and things like that to take place. And so it's a sort of a balancing act between whether or not I should plan everything down to a T and just follow the plan, or if I should plan things but just sort of leave room for newness, right? For new inspirations and things like that. So it's just following a balancing act. I found that balance is a very repetitive theme in this particular project. It is something that I've learned a lot about, just sort of working through this project, and so I carry it through. The way that you do one thing is the way that you do all things, right? All right. So we're back on the globe. And again, I'm just sort of adding a little bit details. And what I can do is zoom out a little bit so that we can see how that looks. So I'm noticing that this area here is sort of lost in the sauce. So we're going to add a shadow just to add. And then what happens, or what tends to happen when I'm doing things like that, is I'll have happy accidents, right? So I'm not necessarily trying to do the most detailed job right out the gate. We'll add details later, but I am finding that I like how it's already created a little bit of a ridge. And what I'll do is turn off my sketch to kind of see how that looks. And then we'll tighten it up. So already we're looking okay. Not too bad. And when we're doing work, I think that sometimes we are, especially if you're starting out as a new illustrator, sometimes you can feel sort of discouraged that your pictures aren't coming along as fast as you would like them to, right? So maybe you're watching your favorite YouTuber and they're like knocking them out the box and they're, doing the absolute best job they can do. And when it comes to you illustrating, it may be a little bit slower, but you have to show yourself grace, right? Now, for me, I paint at my own pace. There are some things that I can paint and illustrate extremely fast, and then there are some things that are going to take me a little bit of time to develop, and that's totally okay, right? You don't want to rush yourself. You do want to work until you're satisfied with it, and not necessarily worry about anyone else being satisfied with it, right? So that is something that you do learn along the way and along your journey as an artist. I used to feel real bad that it would, take me so long, or I would like sort of get to a point in my paintings where I'd be like, okay, I guess I worked on this for 5 hours. I'm guessing that's enough time, right? But what ended up happening is one day I decided to say, okay, yeah, it's been 5 hours, but let me see if I can give it another hour, right? Or let me see if I can give it another 30 minutes. Or let me see if I could tweak this a little bit just until I feel okay about it. And I think that sort of stepped the quality of the work up. So give yourself time. I had a teacher way back when I was in college. Her name is Elizabeth Edwards, Miss Elizabeth Edwards. She would say that whenever you're getting discouraged about something in your artwork, give it another hour, right? Give yourself another hour. And within that hour, it usually kind of shapes up. And that's a rule that I've followed since then. I think I've had her class 2007, 2008. She said, give it another hour. And that is a rule of thumb. If you're working on something and it's not sort of coming along as fast as you can step away from it. But before you do, give yourself another hour to sort of tweak and see what it is that you can do to improve it. And more often than not, it'll come together. At least that has been my experience. It'll come together, right? So we're just adding odds and ends. And again, this is not something that I want incredibly detailed. I just sort of want it to read as a globe on a wooden stand, right? So I want to make sure that I have all of the texture right. I want to make sure that I have all of the colors right, because remembering this is going to be on a card. So it doesn't have to be exact, right? It doesn't have to be as detailed as a photograph. It doesn't even have to be photorealistic. It just needs to be clear enough for your eye to say, okay, that's a globe. Moving on. What are they doing, right? This isn't the focal point of our picture, although the position of it in the card, your eye will naturally go to this particular place. So it is my job to tone it down so that you're more interested in what's going on and what's happening on the table. So those are things we have to consider as artists. Now, we did this with our Two of Swords, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. So with the Two of Swords, this was something that I paid a whole lot of attention to. Where do I want the eye to be led to? Okay. So the Two of Swords is an image that we did that was set at night. I think we did it before this one. I think that was the last card that we worked on, Two of Swords. Now, because this is set at night, and I wanted my focus to be on the swords themselves, I had to compose the picture in a way to say, okay, there's a man in the center of this picture, and I know that the eye is going to lead to the man initially. But he's not the most important thing going on in this picture. The most important thing going on is the fork in the road and the Two of Swords leading to two different directions, because the Two of Swords is all about making a decision and making a wise choice, or even coming to a stalemate. So you can only go one of two ways, right? And so in this picture, I had to compose it in a way as to say, okay, this is the message that I want to send. Let me make sure that it's lit in a way that the eye is looking at the thing that I think is most important about this picture. So as soon as it loads, we'll take a look at that. I know Friday's live stream, we did look at it for lighting. That is sort of going to play a huge part in creating a focal point in this particular piece. All right, here we go. All right, so this is the Two of Swords. And again, this has to do with choices. This has to do with stalemate. And yes, there is a central figure. And the way that our brains work is that anytime we see a person on the page, our eye immediately connects to that person. So there is a central figure. But I did not want our figure who was in the middle of the page to be the main focus of this image, right? So even if you're, unconsciously looking at him first, because he's dark, because he's sort of blacked out quite a bit, because there is not too much going on with or around him, the idea is to trick the mind to say, okay, what else is happening in the picture? So when we created a focal point, I wanted the focal point to be the clearing, so that has the most detail and tells the most story, as opposed to us worrying about what's going on in the foreground and what's going on with our figure. So if we zoom in here, of course, again, these are going to be small cards. So all of this is going to be printed fairly small, right? But if we go in here, there's a lot more information. There's a clearing, there's mist. There are these two swords that are glowing. And they have these sort of fireflies around them. So that says, hey, this is important. So if you've ever played a video game, one of my favorite games is the Uncharted series, Drake's Uncharted. Anytime you have to climb a wall, or anytime you have to sort of look at a certain thing, it's usually painted subtly, but in such a way that it says, hey, pay attention to me. This is the wall you need to climb. So that's sort of the idea with having the sparkles around the swords. Now, of course, they are pointing in two different directions, and the character has no other choice but to choose a direction. The directions look pretty identical because in our main source material, the woman is, there's a female character holding two swords that are identical, right? So neither choice is better than the other. You just have to make a choice, right? So that is the message of this particular card. And again, the way that we wanted to, or the way that I wanted to direct the focus, was to change the lighting around what was going on in the background. So same applies with our Two of Wands. Now, we hadn't quite gotten there yet because we're still sort of developing the picture, but that is the reason why we don't want to give the globe too much attention, right? We don't want to give it too much importance. I don't necessarily want it to be the most beautiful globe in the world. I just need it to read as a globe in the background, right? So that's sort of how that works. And we'll keep working on it a little bit here. And then I think today's going to be a pretty short live stream. Again, I'm just wanting to lay this in so that it is easy for me to pick back up on a little bit later. And I just wanted to show you how I would approach something like this. Now, again, Friday, we had a beautiful live stream where we did some demonstrations. So if you are in the interest group of learning digital painting. And if it's something that you actually are curious about and want me to talk a little bit more about, let me know. You can leave it in the comment or in the chat. If you enjoyed that live stream, make sure you hit a thumbs up because that'll let me know, okay, there's people that like this type of content. Maybe we'll do it again and allow people to come in and ask questions. And I can, if I don't know an answer, because I'm the type of person, if I don't know something, I don't know. But I'm sure I can point you in the right direction to someone who might know a little bit better than me. So if that's something that you like and are interested in, be sure to let me know. If there's something that you want to talk about in terms of learning digital artwork, maybe if you want to talk about something in the realm of spirituality and specifically the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, let me know. That will help me out. That'll sort of give me a direction to go in, and then I'll sort of know what the where to go, which way to go, which pocket to stay in. But I believe that showing you guys some of the process of creating these cards, has been helpful for quite a few people because I get some sweet messages from folks who are finding this valuable. And to each of you, I really appreciate that. So we're just adding some texture now. And earlier, or in that live stream, I talked about three of the brushes that I use: Hotline, this chalk brush, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is, let's see. Yeah, this is the chalk brush, so it has a little bit of a chalky texture. I also use a hotline brush, which is just a regular old round brush. It doesn't do anything fancy, but it does allow me to build up color. So this is that. I do the majority of my painting with this particular brush, then the chalk brush. And then if I want some extra texture, I will use a smudge brush to blend and add texture. It also adds color and things like that. So that's sort of how I manage that kind of thing. Now, I do have specialty brushes, and we did show you a couple of those Friday, where I have brushes that are specific to landscapes. I have brushes that are specific to like clouds and different things like that. I do use them, and they do come in handy beautifully when I don't want to have to draw each leaf, which I have done. But in the event that I don't think that's necessary for me to do, those types of brushes are super helpful in getting the job done. And so, yeah, I have lots of brushes. I think brushes is one of the things that a lot of new artists get really obsessed with, myself included, because I have brushes from when I worked in Photoshop. I used to make brushes. I used to have this effect that I would add to all of my paintings where it would be like a confetti effect. So I used to do a lot of that in that particular realm. Just working with brushes. Brushes are fun, and they're definitely you can get a lot of nice, neat textures and effects with brushes. But they're not the most important thing. The most important thing if you are learning digital artwork is to get the basics, because no matter what kind of brush you're using, you still have to sort of make the picture convincing, right? And the best way to do that is to sort of have a solid foundation on your artistic skills, have an idea and a direction of where you want to go. So all of that plays a much more vital role. And once you've got that down, then go have fun with the brushes. I definitely enjoy them myself. So I'm just going to add some texture to this. Again, I'm using my Hierophant as a base. I am going to model this particular sphere after the spheres in the Hierophant, so that, again, we're nodding to this same world, so that everything in the Cosmic Gateways Tarot feels a part of the same sort of planet, the same atmosphere, the same dimension, what have you, that kind of thing. So I'm just playing around. This doesn't even have to be fancy, because what I'll do is take that smudge brush and I'll add a little bit of texture to it. Now, one thing about this particular item is that I have to keep in mind my light source. So right now I have this scene pretty neutrally lit, meaning this evenly lit. There's no clear light source, right? So if you're looking at me specifically, there is a lamp above my camera, so there is a light shining on my head. That means the things under here are going to be in shadow. There's a lamp, not a lamp, there's a window to my left, so my left shoulder is going to be in light, but my right shoulder is not. That's sort of the things that we have to keep in mind when we're talking about a light source. And this is a sphere, and spheres tend to catch light. Now, because this is a neutral lit scene, and we don't necessarily have a defined light source, I'm going to assume that they're probably in a lit room and the light is kind of coming from the top. And because of that, we want to be very conscious and aware of how I illustrate this sphere. right? So naturally, there's going to be a shadow down below here underneath, and then up top is going to be a little bit lighter, and then we'll blend all of that out. And I'm going to use a blend brush called Confetti, which is going to give me a little bit of texture, just like so. So that I'm not blending this smooth. Now, if I was using a regular sort of blend brush and I wanted this to be smooth, this is sort of how it would look, right? I don't necessarily want that effect for this. I want it to read as an old globe. So I'm going to use this confetti blend brush to give me that effect. And then I'll come back with my chalk brush to add more texture. And it started with the texture of the chalk brush. I'm just moving it around at this point. So yeah, I hope you guys had a chance to watch that. I really, really enjoy having Sam and Lee on. I like having someone sort of ask what's going on and give me some questions and again direction so that I can show different things because I've been doing this for so long. Some things I take for granted, right? So it's common to me. For instance, I think Sam asked about the stylus pen, right? To me, I wouldn't even thought to, hey, I'm I'm using a tablet and things like that. So having someone come on and ask those types of questions is helpful to me in a major, major way because it gives me the direction. It sort of gives me a way to move and to explain and things like that. And it just sort of makes me a better artist because now I'm paying much more attention to what I'm doing so that if I have to explain it, then I'll know exactly how to explain it and how to break it down so that you guys can learn as well, right? So if you want to come on, if you have a project that you're working on, if you have something that you would love to share, I would love to have you on. We also did a interview with deck creators IJ Richardson a few months back, which was a beautiful time. If you haven't had a chance to see that, be sure to hop on over after this live stream. Go to the live tab in my channel and check that out. Now, she is a deck creator who is using AI as a means of creation. And so we get into all of that. We talk a little bit about her why for using AI. What are some of the advantages? What are some of the disadvantages and things like that? So if you're interested in that conversation, that was a great conversation, a great build. But if you do have a project that you're working on that you would like to share, if you have some artwork that you would like for me to critique, or sort of help you to improve, let me know. I've seen some people do draw overs where they'll have people show sort of what they've done and talk about what maybe they're having a little bit of trouble with that art piece, and the artist will help them sort of correct it. If you're having some trouble with something that you're working on and you need a little bit of help and a little bit of direction, let me know. I would love to help you with that. That's sort of in my wheelhouse. I enjoy that part. I enjoy watching those. I think they're super helpful, even for someone like myself who's been doing this for so long. I don't think you're ever sort of too old to learn something new, right? That's sort of my approach to it. If I don't know how to draw something, it doesn't hurt me at all to go go to YouTube University and learn how to do a certain thing, especially if it's something that I'm not accustomed to doing. So I would love to offer that to you if it is something that you are interested in. And our globe is shaping up really, really well. So see how much that texture helped? We're going to add a little more shadow because, again, we're imagining the light source is sort of at the top of the page. And I am just going to blend that out using my confetti brush to give me that extra texture. And then what I can do from there is add some sort of lines, such as my longitude and latitude lines to this globe if I wanted to. But that looks great, right? It's not sort of taking up too much space in the picture. It's not sort of taking away the importance of what's going on. And that's sort of what I'm shooting for, right? Now I could probably tighten this up quite a bit more, especially at the top of the this area here. I'm hoping there we go. So the top of this where my little spinning mouse is doing here, I could probably add a little more detail, add a little more shadow and nuance and things like that. But in terms of how detailed this is, this looks pretty good for the amount of importance that it has on the screen. Now, again, the most important thing is going to be where our main character is pointing in the conversation that they're having. So at some point, I will probably go in and adjust her lips to make it look like she's actually talking to her counterpart. But that's sort of the most important thing. And of course, our two wands, and I'll show you guys the sketch so that you guys can see it. The two wands on the table are going to have the utmost importance. So those will probably be the most elaborate thing on the page, right? So that I'll make sure that they stand out just like we did with the two swords. So if we go back to that picture and we're looking at the two swords in the background, the two swords of this picture were the most important aspect of this picture. And so we gave them a very special treatment, and we'll do the exact same thing when it comes to the two wands, right? So that looks good. And I'm actually, it's making me feel a little bit better because I was like, we spent a whole lot of time on this picture. I spent a whole lot of time on the people, but nothing else seems to be getting done. So sometimes it can be a little bit discouraging, even for myself. So just to have this much progress going and have it come together that fast makes me feel a whole heck of a lot better. So I'm happy. I'm happy to see that it's coming together real fast. Because usually what'll happen is I'll do this part off live, right? I'll give details and things like that off live, and then I'll be like, man, I should have did this. I should have did this while I was recording because it didn't take me that long to do. So I'm happy to be able to show you guys a little bit of what that looks like. And what I'm doing now is it's loading. So there we go. I was waiting on my globe to show up. So it looks like there's a little bit of a shadow on the globe where the sort of the ruler is. There's a shadow on the globe here. So I'm going to try to add that shadow in just to give it a little more dimension. But I am going to do this on a separate layer because just in case I don't like it, what I do know is that I like what I've done to the globe so far, right? So if I don't like it, then I can always just sort of get rid of it, and there's no harm done. I'm going to take this shadow color and we're going to add it here. And what I'm going to do once I put it in is I'm going to soften it up quite a bit. Because the texture, even though this is the texture that we're going for, it's a little hard for what we're wanting. So I'm going to take my blend brush, my smudge tool, make it a little bit smaller, and we're going to soften this quite a bit. So that, yes, we have a shadow, but it is a little bit softer than we want. And I'm going to even go further than that, and we're going to take a regular blend tool and soften that up. And so now we've created a little bit of space. Now I'm also noticing that there is some light happening right up under the ruler in our reference. I'll zoom in here. So there's some, you can see the underside of the other side of the globe because this seems to stand off the globe a little bit. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that back in. I'm going to use my lighter color here, and I'm just going to add it in. And again, this is adding just a bit of dimension, and it's also raising our ruler off of the globe, right? And so too, what I'm noticing is now below it, because the ruler isn't necessarily right up against the globe, and that's so that the globe can move. You can see the underside of the bookshelf. So I'm just going to add that into here. And I've made a slight mistake because what I should have did was did this on a separate layer. But for the time being, we'll just leave it at that. And we will add some other nuances. Maybe we will raise it up a little bit here at the top. Something like this, right? And then I'm going to zoom out because I just sort of manipulated the shape of my globe. We're going to zoom out to see if that looks okay. That looks good. And I'm going to add just a bit of shadow here. And then I think we're going to wrap it up for the day. Just like so. All right, and there we have it. We have a globe. We were able to finish that in about 58 minutes. And I think it looks pretty good. So I'm going to continue to work on this off of live. And hopefully next week we'll have much more progress to show you guys on this card. And after we finish this card, what I'm going to do, because it's been on my mind to do, is we're going to go back and look at some of my old YouTube videos and show you how far I've come as an artist in the last 11 years, right? So I started this channel again in 2013. So we'll show you some of that, some of the techniques and things that I used to use in digital work, as well as some of my acrylic paintings. But I think for today, we're going to call it a day here. So if you're watching this live or the replay, I really, really thank you so, so much for stopping by and watching me paint and work on my dream project. And I hope that if there is something that you want to do and there's something that you have a dream of doing, I hope that this encourages you to take a little bit of time. It doesn't have to be 14 hours a day like our friend and did the other day. But 20 minutes a day, right? 30 minutes a day or one day a week that you spend working on the thing that you absolutely love to do is going to change the trajectory of your life. I'm a witness to that. I can assure you of that. So I do encourage you to work on the things that you love to do. A little bit at a time goes a long way. Now, if you would like to support this channel, if you'd like to support me as an artist, one of the quickest and easiest ways for you to do that is to like this video. That lets YouTube know that you value this particular content and that you think other people will also value this content and enjoy seeing it, right? Other ways that you can support this channel is by visiting my website, blewisarts.com, where right now I have a site-wide sale where everything is 40% off and canvas prints do ship for free. And they always ship for free, but they are also 40% off. So things usually ship out, aside from the canvas prints, within 2 days. Canvas prints do take about 2 weeks. So if there's something that you want for Christmas, do that now so that we can go ahead and put it in production for you so that you can have it for the holidays. But until then, I do appreciate you. Also, be sure to check out Friday's live stream with Sam and Lee, where we talked all about tips and tricks, and I showed how I would study an image if I were want to learn sort of composition and things like that. Some of the things that I would like to look for. We also did a tour of Clip Studio Paint. So if you're interested in that, that was Friday's live stream. But until then, I hope that you all have a happy, prosperous, and creative week. And until next week, peace.